Okay, you're on 22B, got it right, towards the bottom. We established yesterday the essential question that will define the halacha of whether or not one may light from one candle to another. The suggestion we've been running around before is whether it's disrespectful, in which case it's only a problem if you're using a medium in between. But if you're doing one mitzvah directly from the other, it's permissible because there's no disrespect, which is indeed the way it was done in the temple. The seven candles, each lamp had a wick long enough to light from the lamp next to it, which, by the way, by divine providence, that was yesterday's daily Rambam study. When we learned during the Gemara, it was also a daily Rambam study. It so happens, by divine providence. The daily Rambam study that they ever set up, 3 chapters a day. Today these days we're learning the laws of Timidin and Musafin. We're learning the laws of the daily sacrifices in the temple, the daily ritual or service in the temple. And part of that is lighting the menorah. So, yesterday, I'm learning it, and I see, it says you light one candle from the other, first 5, then do something else, then come back and do the other 2. And he describes there the long wick, and he says, because that's not disrespectful to the mitzvah, right? From yesterday's Gemara. That was one way of understanding it, which is the halacha. The other way of understanding it is that by lighting one candle from the other, you're diminishing the original candle. And that would mean even if you're doing one mitzvah from the other, you shouldn't. But that was rejected by the Gemara because of this halacha with regarding the temple, in which the temple they did light one lamp from the next. So clearly you may light one mitzvah from another. So clearly it's not an issue of diminishing the candle, clearly it's an issue of disrespect. So that remains a freestanding halacha. But when it comes to the halacha of Chanukah, the Gemara now suggests a new paradigm, which is what we concluded with yesterday. And the paradigm is, we've already established way back when, the beginning of our whole discussion on Chanukah, that the mitzvah of Chanukah is about the act, not the result. Shabbos candles, the mitzvah is the result, the resulting light, which you are meant to enjoy. That's the mitzvah, you're supposed to enjoy the candles. Whereas when it comes to Chanukah, the mitzvah is not the resulting lights, but the actual act, notwithstanding the fact that because it's an object with which you did a mitzvah, it still deserves some respect. And this is something we dedicated quite a few classes to that issue as well. Now the Gemara is going to ask, the paradigm the Gemara set for us yesterday is, which act is the mitzvah? Is the act of lighting it the mitzvah? Or is the act of placing it in its proper place the mitzvah? The moment of lighting or the moment of placing, putting it down? If it's a question of lighting, then when I'm lighting one candle from the next, the moment I've lit it, I did the mitzvah. And therefore there's zero disrespect because I'm doing a mitzvah in that moment of lighting. But if the mitzvah is not the lighting, but the putting it down, then the moment I lit the candle from the other candle, which is already a mitzvah, I didn't do a mitzvah that moment. I prepared myself for the mitzvah I'm going to do in a second from now, which is putting the candle down, in which case there is disrespect. Because I'm using the mitzvah for something which is not a mitzvah. I'm using the mitzvah for something which is less than a mitzvah. It's preparation for the mitzvah. Following? Even if you did have candle holders. If you're holding it with the candle, but you're putting it down on the floor, on the table, whatever it is, you're setting it down, letting go of it, in other words. You have the candle in your hand, right? And you've taken it to light by another menorah, or somebody else's menorah. In that second, did I do the mitzvah or not? If the mitzvah is to light, then I did the mitzvah in that second. No disrespect, because I've lit the candle from a mitzvah, doing an actual mitzvah. If the mitzvah is going to come in a second from now, when I put it down, then a second ago when I lit the candle, I wasn't doing a mitzvah yet. I was preparing myself for the mitzvah. In which case, it is disrespectful, because I'm using a mitzvah. That's the menorah I'm lighting now. That's my candle, and I'm lighting from your candle, let's say. Right? So you've already done your mitzvah. Now I'm taking my candle to light from yours. In the moment I lit from your candle, did I do a mitzvah in that moment or not? If the mitzvah is the actual lighting, then in that second I did a mitzvah. No disrespect. I used your mitzvah to serve my mitzvah. Not a problem. But if the mitzvah is going to come in a minute from now, when I put it down in my house next door, let's say, or even if I'm living with you and I we share an apartment, whatever, we share a front door, and I'm putting it down right next to you, but my mitzvah is not coming the second I lit it. It's coming a few moments later when I put it down. In which case, the moment of me lighting my candle from yours wasn't an actual mitzvah. It was preparation for mitzvah. In which case, it was disrespectful to misappropriate your mitzvah for the lesser degree of my mitzvah. Okay, that's the paradigm we're looking at now. Now the Gemara is going to bring a number of scenarios that are going to help us play out more differences in this paradigm and try to see if we can come to some understanding based on other halachas that might prove one way or the other vis-a-vis this paradigm. Clear? Okay, says the Gemara like this. Tashma. The line begins with the word mitzvah. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines from the bottom of the page of Chav Beis, Amud Beis, 22b, second word. There's a tough and a shin, I'm sorry. Tashma, come in here. This is the way the Gemara, it's like, again, the Gemara is a conglomerate of conversations. So you have to imagine sages are talking to each other. So one sage says to the other, come and listen to this proof that might help us resolve this issue. So Tashma, come and listen to this. The Amar Rava, for Rava taught us. Hi, it's not a Mishnaic H text, it's a Gemara H text. Because Rava is speaking, even though it's actually in Hebrew. So maybe he's quoting from an earlier generation, I don't know. Because Rava would ordinarily be speaking in Aramaic because he's from the Babylonian era, from the Gemara's age, not from the Mishnah age, but nonetheless, it's in Hebrew, which is interesting. Okay, the Amar Rava said, Haya Tofis Ner Chanukah, if he was holding a candelabra, a menorah, his candle from the menorah, the candle of Chanukah, the menorah, and he's standing, because he hasn't put it down yet. Said Rava, he didn't do any mitzvah. So what does that teach you? He already lit the candle, but he didn't put it down. And Rava says he didn't do a mitzvah. So what would be the moment of mitzvah then, according to this? Not the moment of lighting, but the moment of putting it down. So the Gemara tries to derive from Shmamina. Let us derive from here. Hanacha is a mitzvah. The mitzvah is to put it down. Not a question of lighting it, because this guy already lit the candle. But he hasn't put it down yet. And Rava says nothing was done. When you put it down, now mitzvah is going to be done. So here's a clear proof that the moment of the mitzvah is not the lighting, but the few moments later when I put it down. Or an hour later if I happen to be walking around holding a candle for an hour. But the mitzvah is not done until I positioned it, put it down. So if that were the case, then if I lit that candle from somebody else's mitzvah, that would have been misappropriation. Because I didn't do my mitzvah yet. I just lit a candle. The mitzvah is coming in a few moments from now when I put it down. Right? But me holding the candle is not a misappropriation because the mitzvah was done yet. It's just a regular, ordinary candle. I'm just happy to be holding it. When I put it down for the sake of the mitzvah, now I've done the mitzvah. Until then, I'm just holding the candle. Maybe I'm preparing myself for the mitzvah, but I haven't done the mitzvah yet. I'm just holding it. Right? Okay. Trying to think of a parallel that might it's not exactly the same thing, but it's similar to holding a lulav without the esrog. I'm holding an object with which a mitzvah will be done when I hold the esrog and put it together. In that custom. Chabad custom is not to do that, but in other customs. Make it simple. I'm walking and holding my lulav, and the esrog is sitting on the table. I'm holding an object with which, in a moment from now, I'm going to do a mitzvah when I pick up the esrog and put it together. Right? So there's a moment when the mitzvah happens, and until that moment happens, it's not a mitzvah. So I'm preparing myself for it, or I'm just holding the candle. I don't know. Right? So that's what I was saying. If you're walking around holding a candle, you're thinking that this is my menorah, but you haven't done a mitzvah yet. When you put it down, now there'll be a mitzvah. So this seems to be conclusive evidence that the moment of the mitzvah is not the lighting, but the moment it's positioned. Says the Gemara, this is not conclusive. Good proof, not conclusive. Why? Because when it comes to the mitzvah of Chanukah, when it comes to the mitzvah of the menorah, we've already discussed a number of times, a big part of the mitzvah is the way people view it. It's about publicizing the miracle. So people have to see it. And therefore, Haraya Omer, the one who sees it might say, he's holding it for his own purposes. In other words, what the Gemara is suggesting is like this. The fact that Rabbi said you didn't do a mitzvah until you put it down is not because the moment of putting it down is the mitzvah. Really, the moment of lighting is the mitzvah. But we're going to count that moment as nothing. Because while you're walking around holding a candle, someone who sees it doesn't think you're doing anything for Chanukah. That person just thinks you're holding a candle because you want to see where you're walking. The person who is observing you doesn't know your intention that you lit it for a mitzvah. The person observing you thinks you're holding it because you need a candle. It's a flashlight, ancient flashlight, right? So it's not a statement on the essence of the mitzvah. Is it the moment of lighting or is it the moment of positioning it? It's a statement on the visual, on the optics. The optics of someone holding a candle without putting it down is that it's just for personal use. And that's why Rabbi says he hasn't done anything, but not because Rabbi is making a statement on the moment of the mitzvah. And if the Gemara rejects this as conclusive evidence. Close, but no cigar. Following? So the Gemara first said the statement seems to be conclusive evidence because while you're holding the candle, you haven't done anything, which seems to imply the mitzvah isn't done until you put it down. Answer the Gemara, good, not conclusive, because it's possible that the reason why Rabbi said nothing happened, not because you didn't do a mitzvah, but because the visual of it, the optics of it is, the appearance of it is that you're just holding it for your own personal use, and there's no appearance of a mitzvah, which is a big part of the mitzvah itself, but not because the putting it down, in other words, it doesn't tell us one way or the other. It could be the lighting as a mitzvah, it could be the putting down as a mitzvah, and Rabbi's comment has nothing to do with when the mitzvah happens, but rather the visual of it. It has to look like you lit it for the menorah. And it doesn't look like that until you put it down, even though the mitzvah may have been done earlier. This is either like today. Yeah, so we're going to assume he's doing the lowest level. He's doing the lowest level of one candle per day per household, not yeah, that's a good question. So if you're holding a modern menorah, well, first of all, nowadays nobody carries candles on for light. Nobody does that because you have electricity. So that's number one. Number two, if you're holding a candelabra that had 8 branches and in the middle one of the 9 for Shamash, and you had 3 candles lit there, the optics is pretty clear that you're holding a menorah for Hanukkah. So I don't know if the law changes. I can't say. I don't know. It's a good question. But the point is still being made that the fact that this person who's holding one candle because he's theoretically only doing the basic mitzvah, he's not doing any of the higher levels of doing, increasing number every day, the halacha still remains. That the reason why it's possible that the reason why Rabbi said he hasn't done anything until he put it down is because of the visual, not because he's making a comment on when the actual mitzvah is done. So it's not conclusive. Now the Gemara suggests another statement of Rabbi that might help us understand. Toshma, come and listen. The Amar Rabbi for Rabbi said another statement of Rabbi that might help us understand, might help us resolve this conundrum. Hedlika b'fnim. He lit the candle inside, in his home. And then he took it out. So we mentioned in the past that the halacha is that a person ought to light the menorah outdoors in the front of his home by his front door, on the left side of his front door. And I mentioned before that in Eretz Yisrael that they indeed do that in Yerushalayim. You walk around, you see it's very beautiful. People have menorahs outside their house. And the Gemara also mentioned that if the case is such that you can't do that, then put it by the window. And if you're under circumstances when the government's oppressing us and having a menorah in your window is basically a marker inviting hoodlums to come raid your home because you're a Jew, then put it on your table inside. Which means, in theory, a person should not leave it on the table inside in a circumstance when everything's fine. So today a guy in Eretz Yisrael lights it in the table, and then takes it outside to put it where it's supposed to be. Said Rava, lo yasa klum. He didn't do anything. So, yeah, he didn't do the mitzvah. He didn't do anything. He didn't do the mitzvah. He lit it on his dining room table, and then he carried his menorah and put it outside. Says Rava, no mitzvah. So what would that indicate to you? That what's the moment of the mitzvah? Not the placing it, because he placed it. The problem is the lighting. And when he lit it, he didn't light it properly because he lit it on his dining room table instead of outside. Right? And the Gemara says, if you're going to suggest that hadlaka is a mitzvah, at the moment of lighting it does the mitzvah, then that's why he failed to do a mitzvah. Because the hadlaka b'makayma be'inon, then lighting itself, the moment of lighting, which is the moment of the mitzvah, presumably, has to be done in the right place. And that's why Rabbi says he hasn't done a mitzvah, because at the moment of lighting it was in his home. Right. So if it's under a circumstance where the halacha allows for you to do it indoors, say here in Canada, so this whole halacha doesn't really apply. Which, moreover, he wouldn't be carrying it outside at all. He would just be leaving it in his house. But in this circumstance, he should be lighting it outside. He lit it inside and then carried it outside. So Rabbi says it's invalid. It's only invalid if you assume that the moment of lighting is a mitzvah. And therefore, the moment of lighting was done incorrectly because he did it indoors, therefore no mitzvah. But if you're of the view that the moment of lighting is not the mitzvah, the moment of putting it down is the mitzvah, then why are you saying he didn't do anything? He lit it inside, no mitzvah done because lighting is not the mitzvah. He carried it outside, put it down, he did the mitzvah. What's the problem? So this seems to be again evidence that the moment of the mitzvah is not the moment of lighting, but the moment of putting it down. This seems to, the Gemara is going to refute it in a moment. But at the moment, this seems, right now, at this point in the Gemara, it seems to be conclusive evidence from the fact, sorry? No, it seemed to be, it would seem to be at the moment of lighting is the mitzvah. Which is why when he lit it inside, carried it outside, and put it down, no mitzvah was done. Because the moment of lighting it is the mitzvah. That's what this seems to be. Says the Gemara, no, not conclusive. Good, but not conclusive. Hasam Nami here too. The Gemara suggests like this. Perhaps, again, Rav is not making a comment on what the moment of the mitzvah is, whether lighting it or whether they're putting it down. The reason why, when he lit it inside and he carried it outside and put it down, is not a mitzvah, is not because the moment of mitzvah happened earlier when he lit, but because of the optics. Someone sees you carrying a candelabra or a single candle, if he's doing the basic mitzvah. He sees you opening your front door with the candle lit and you put it down. The person watching that thinks you're putting it there because you're going to come back and you want some light so you don't trip when you're entering your home. He doesn't see a mitzvah being done. The visuals, again, is not a problem. If you're standing outside and you light it and you're making the bracha, the person looking at this says, oh, the guy's doing the mitzvah. But if I walked outside holding my candle and putting it down, there's no evidence that I'm doing a mitzvah. If the visual of it looks like it's not a mitzvah. So therefore, there's no conclusive evidence from this halacha whether or not the mitzvah is the moment of lighting it or the moment of putting it down. Because again, Rav is not commenting on the actual moment of the mitzvah, he's commenting on the optics of it. A modern version of that is if there's a blackout and someone sees you walking out with the flashlight on your phone. So in ancient times, you were walking out holding a candle. The visual doesn't look like a mitzvah, even though maybe the mitzvah is the moment of putting it down. So there's no evidence here yet. Right, but you could argue both ways. I could argue the point is no conclusive evidence. I could argue that the moment the mitzvah was lighting it, and Rav is invalidating it because of the optics, maybe. Or maybe the moment of lighting it is when I put it down, and Rav is still invalidating it because of the optics. There's no conclusive evidence, is the point here. That's correct. Right. If the moment of lighting is correct, then the moment of lighting should be done in the right place. Which is why so either that's why it's invalid, but in other words, either way it's not conclusive, because it could be the other way also. It could be the moment of lighting was done, and yet it's invalid because of the optics, or maybe the moment of lighting was incorrect because you did it inside, not outdoors. Maybe that's why Rabbi says it's no good. Or maybe the moment of the mitzvah was putting it down, and yet it's still invalid because of the optics. There's no evidence, is the point. Correct. There's too many variables as to in other words, you have to find a scenario in which the only reason why it's invalid is because either the moment of the mitzvah was incorrect because of putting it down or because of lighting it. But as soon as I introduce some other issue that might explain why it's invalid, there's no conclusive evidence anymore. And we've done that twice already. It could be it was lighting inside that it's invalid, or it could be because of the optics. No conclusive evidence. And that's the point. Okay, one more such suggested evidence and then refutation. Last line on the page of Chaf Beis on the base, 22b. Tashma, come and listen. To Omer Rabbi Shua ben Levi, till now is Rava we were introducing, now we're introducing Rabbi Shua ben Levi, who said, Ashoshis, Shahaisa de Lekes, Velekes Kalayim Kulay, a big glass bowl of oil, so Rashi says. In French, Rashi says, a lanterna. I imagine that's a lantern. So a big bowl filled with oil. Yeah, like I imagine most people had this on the old day, right? If you were having a 4-hour dinner, you had candles around your house that lasted for 4 hours in the evening, especially in winter where night it's dark already at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So imagine this is normal people had, right? So a big lantern, and it's been burning all day long because it's Shabbos, right? So you lit it Friday night because you want to have light in your home, and you want to have light to last for all 24 hours because this room is a dark room or whatever. So you have a big lantern filled with enough oil to last 24 hours. You lit it for 25 hours. You lit it Friday afternoon, and it's been burning all Shabbos. Now I want to use that candle for my menorah on Saturday night on Motzai Shabbos. So says Rabbi Shubin Levi, the Motzai Shabbos, when Shabbos is over, Mechaba put it out, Madlika, and relight it. What does that seem to suggest? That what's the moment of the mitzvah? The moment of the mitzvah is lighting it. You have to put it out and relight it. Oh, so let's see. If you're going to suggest that the moment of lighting it is what does the mitzvah, shapir, then it's all correct. Why Rabbi Shubin Levi says you have to put that candle that's been burning out all Shabbos and relight it to do the mitzvah, because the moment of lighting is the mitzvah. If you're of the opinion that not lighting it is a mitzvah, but putting it down is a mitzvah, he has to put it out and light it? No, what he should have done is mechaba, put it out, umadbia, and raise it up, umanicha, and put it down, umadlika, and then light it. Miboyle is what it should have said. Let's say this lamp that's been burning 25 hours is in the front of your home, right where the menorah is supposed to be. 25-hour lamp lighting in the front of your home, outside, so it's in the correct spot. When Motzei Shabbos comes, Rabbi Shubin Levi says, go outside, put that candle out, relight it. Did I put the menorah down? No, I lit it. If it's hypothetical. He's using this as menorah, right? Again, we're using the basic halacha. He's not doing increasing 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's using that lamp for his menorah. So says Rabbi Shubin Levi. Also should remember, by the way, it's interesting to note this. The Gemara never uses the word menorah. We're translating it as menorah. The Gemara uses the word ner Chanukah, the candle of Chanukah, because menorah translates as a candelabra. The Gemara is not assuming you're using a candelabra. The Gemara is assuming you're lighting a candle. So it's ner Chanukah, light of Chanukah. We just can't translate it as menorah because that's the way we in common vernacular. But menorah just means a candelabrum. A candelabra could be your chandelier also as a menorah in halachic terminology. It's ner Chanukah, the light of Chanukah. Anyway, so this person wants to use this lamp that's been burning 25 hours right outside of his home in the exact right spot. He wants to use it for his menorah, for his Hanukkah candle, Motzei Shabbos. Says Rabbi Shubin Levi, all you have to do is put it out and relight it. This would indicate that the moment of lighting is the mitzvah. Because if the mitzvah is not the lighting, but the putting it down, then what I would have to do is put it out, raise it up, put it down, and then relight it. Because I have to put it down to do the mitzvah. Because it's been sitting there for 25 hours, so I didn't do the act of putting it down. Is it the act of putting it down, or is it the act of lighting it? If it's the act of putting it down, then put it out, raise it, put it back down, then light. Sorry? Oh, because good point. If I were to just raise it and put it down without putting it out, lighting it, then you would run into the problem of Rava, of the issues mentioned before, that the optics look like it's your personal use. Right? So I have to put it out, raise it up, put it down, moment of mitzvah, and then light it. You have to put it out. The same question, same thing. Here it's 25 hours. The yahrzeit candles, 7-day candles. Right. So this is, it's the same exact thing as the 25 hours. 25 hours or 8 days, same point. The point is that Rabbi Shubin Levi is saying all I have to do is put it out and relight it, rather than put it out, raise it up, put it down, and then relight it. So this, the Gemara accepts as conclusive evidence at the moment of lighting is the mitzvah, not the moment of putting it down. In theory, had the mitzvah been to put it down, then the halacha would be put it out, raise it up, put it down, and then light. That's what you would have done had the moment of the mitzvah been putting it down. Then again, the optics would be you're using it for personal use. the optics of you putting it down would look like you're putting it down for personal use. But you put it down unlit and then light it, so it's clear you're putting it down for the mitzvah. So you have to put the candle out, raise it up, put it back down. Sorry? Correct. But the fact that Rabbi Shubal Levi said you don't have to do that. All I have to do is put it out and relight indicates for us that putting it down is not the moment of the mitzvah, but the lighting it is the moment of the mitzvah. That's conclusive evidence, says the Gemara. So let's conclude this discussion. But in addition, some more conclusive evidence. Top of 23b-a. Midim kamavar chinon. Considering the fact that the liturgy of the blessing that we make on the menorah is Asher Kedushanim Mitzvah, for God you have sanctified us with your commandments. B'tzivonu, and you commanded us lahadlik ner shel Chanukah, to light the lamp of Chanukah. We don't say lahaniach ner shel Chanukah. We don't say thank you God for the commandment of putting the menorah down. We say thank you God for the mitzvah of lighting the menorah, of lighting the Chanukah lamp. Thus says the Gemara, Shema Mina, this too is indication. This too is conclusive evidence. Hadlaka is a mitzvah. That the lighting of the candle is the mitzvah, not the putting it down. Shema Mina, says the Gemara, this indeed is conclusive evidence. Now, says the Gemara, now that we have substantiated with conclusive evidence at the moment of lighting it is the mitzvah, not the moment of putting it down, then if a deaf mute person or someone who is an imbecile, not in the derogatory sense, just in the medical sense, the katan and a child, the mitzvah does not count. Because like this, if a child who is not obligated to the mitzvah lit the candle, and then I took it and positioned it in the right place, if the moment of the mitzvah is the putting it down, then the mitzvah was done. But because the moment of the mitzvah is not the putting it down, it's the moment of lighting it, the lighting has to be done by someone who is actually halachically required to light the candle. A male, or not a male, an adult who is, who's of sound mind. Yeah. And for other reasons, someone who's a deaf mute is not obligated to mitzvahs. Although they may do mitzvahs, not obligated to mitzvahs. Actually, all these people, the child may do the mitzvah, the imbecile might do the mitzvah, may be allowed, and so is a deaf mute allowed to do mitzvah, even though by halachic standards they're not required. Right? So now, having established that the moment of the lighting is the moment of the mitzvah, then that moment has to be done by someone who is legit obligated to the mitzvah, namely an adult of sound mind. Now, Isha, a woman, Vaday Madlika, she too is obligated to light. Now, why is this such a powerful statement that a woman has to light? Why not? Because ordinarily, the law is positive commandments that are time-bound, women are not obligated. Now, this is a positive commandment, light the candle, that's time-bound. These 8 days at X time at night between such and such time. So ordinarily, following the regular rule, she would be exempt. But nonetheless, she's obligated to light. The Rabbi Shubal Levi, for Rabbi Shubal Levi said, Noshim chayaves b'ner Chanukah. Women are obligated to light the candle of the menorah, the candle of Chanukah. Why? Sh'af hein hayuban oisenes. Because they too were part of the miracle. Which miracle were they part of? So there's a Rashi and there's a Tosfos. Right? Where is this? The Tosfos not over here. Maybe it's elsewhere. Wait, where's the Rashi here? Yeah. So Rashi mentions this. This is, I think it's called prima nota. I think that's the Greek term for it, which is essentially that women are before a woman would get married, the local centurion, the local prefect, is what it's called, prefect? Sorry? The governor, no, there's the person who's installed by Rome to be someone, I think it's called a prefect. Oh, this is Greece, it's before the prefect. It's okay, the Roman governor, the Greek governor, whatever it is, they would, as a way of proving their dominion over a local population, they would demand that any woman who's about to get married spend the night with the local governor before. And that way she was defiled, and it was a way of dominance. And this command was imposed on the Jewish women during the time of the Greek occupation. And therefore, they too share in a great part of the celebration that they were saved from this. And thus, they're obligated to light the menorah. Elsewhere, I thought it was here, but elsewhere, Tosfos talks about, I don't know where it is, but it's, sorry? There's a Tosfos, can't remember where it is, but it's definitely a Tosfos which reads that the women are part of it because of Yehudis. The famous story with Yehudis, that woman who made Eliphanes, one of the generals, brought him into a compromising position because he thought he was going to have his way with her, and she gave him to drink. She gave him cheese, got him thirsty, gave him alcohol, got him to drink, made him fall asleep, and she took his sword and decapitated him. Sorry? She decapitated him and then carried his head on a spike. Sorry, which one was that? Oh, it's in the story. Yeah, that's way earlier. That's way earlier. That's in scripture. So she decapitated him. Yeah, she decapitated him and she carried his head on a spike and completely demoralized that whole legion or that whole platoon. So they were part of the miracle, and therefore they too are obligated in lighting the menorah, even though it's a time-bound mitzvah, which is positive. Now, here's the interesting thing that points out from this. This teaches you that the menorah doesn't just commemorate the miracle of the oil. It commemorates the miracle of the battle too. Which is an interesting point. It's something related to what we talked about earlier, way back when we learned the Gemara about my Chanukah. The Gemara asked, what is Chanukah? And we learned in Rashi's view that the primary celebration is the oil. And yet there's also mention of the battle and the fact there's Al Nisim. Here the Rebbe proves the menorah itself, in Rashi's view, also covers the battle. Because when the Gemara says that women were part of the miracle, which is why they like the menorah, Rashi says what miracle they were part of? Because of the battle issue, not because of the menorah issue, because of Primanota. Right? Which indicates that in Rashi's view, the menorah itself doesn't just commemorate the 8 days of the burning oil, but also commemorates the battle. Because that's the issue that the women were part of, was the physical occupation, not the miracle of the oil. That's what the women were part of. Clear? Right? And this is to further indicate that the essence of the physical struggle was also spiritual. Right? It was the essence of the physical struggle was just the manifestation of a much deeper rooted issue, which is spiritual, which is why when we celebrate the spiritual celebration, the lighting of the menorah, it still covers the manifestation of that spiritual struggle, which was a physical struggle, which women had a very big part of. Okay, so this concludes this whole topic about the moment of the mitzvah. And tomorrow we get into halachas. Halachas of the bracha and halachas of a guest in somebody else's home and other such halachas. We're coming towards the end of the discussion on Chanukah. Okay, wonderful day, everybody.